Hi, welcome. So this video I am super excited about because it is on the Roen Beauty eyeshadow palette and I have the 1111 one. This is a product that I have really gone a little bird brain over, and by that I mean I was hemming and hawing over it and like constantly watching reviews for a long time. I had first started hearing about this formula and this brand back in the spring, and then I saw they had their spring sale, but I didn't want to like jump the gun and purchase anything just yet because the brand was pretty new to me, but I was instantly drawn to these shadow palettes. They have a really unique cream formula, which I'll get into. So I just kept going back to their site and looking at their palettes and reading reviews on them. And lo and behold, all the way last month, they had their fall sale. And that was when I finally pulled the trigger and bought the 1111 palette. But I spent all those months in between really like craving this product. It was a long time since I had felt really excited about eyeshadow. This palette is $42 usually on their site. Same with their other three palettes. They have a warm and a cool one, and this 1111 one is something a little in between. Anywho, I was really excited about this formula because it seemed so unique to me. It just seemed like something I had never tried before. It's this cream shadow formula, but it's really stiff. And you kind of have to like wrestle with it. It doesn't like bend at all. I feel like most cream formulas have this emolliency or like a cloud-like texture that you can dig into. These are really firm, but they are still a cream formula, and their firmness I feel allows them to like have a lot of texture to them. I don't know if you can really tell. I feel like there's a lot of variation in what you can pick up in a swatch. Oh man, it's a little hard to describe, but it is undoubtedly unique. The effect that these eyeshadows give is a very messy, casual glam, if you will. They're very glittery, and they are somewhat challenging to work with. The effect that you will get with these is always kind of like a bit messy and undone. You're never going to be able to create a really like perfect detailed cut crease with these shadows. However, they are really effortless and they meld well with each other. So because it's so glitzy, it does look very glamorous, but it like you can really only work with it as if it were a one and done eyeshadow type of shadow. So you end up achieving like a really just effortlessly extra look, if that makes sense. I think kind of in comparison, the Pat McGrath Astral shades are like freaking bam, I'm perfect, I'm loud, I'm like the most glamorous, right? And you just like have to look at them and they are just like a huge star in the show. Whereas these shadows are similarly really glittery, but the way they kind of like melt into your skin from afar makes it all kind of look like, oh, I'm just like, yeah, I woke up looking this glamorous. Yeah, this is how I always look. What are you talking about? I don't know if that really makes any sense, but that's my description. Anyways, I think these all look great as one and done eyeshadows, so I will go ahead and show each of these on my eye. This first shade is Situation, and it is described as a soft pink, but I don't particularly agree with the shade descriptions that Roen Beauty gives. This one is the most textured out of all four shades, and it has a very white gold champagne-y flecks mostly, with a few kind of like bluish pinkish flecks all over. It is very bright and glimmery, and I think this would be a great eyeshadow topper on top of any shade. The shade is hashtag described as a taupe green, definitely agree with taupe. Have never picked up on the green on my own skin tone. This shade along with the next one are my two favorite in the palette. This one has the most depth out of all of them, and it also has the most cool leaning tones, which I think works really, really nicely to add to other shades if needed. The base pigment is definitely more of a pewter, but the glimmer flecks on top are kind of similar to Situation, where it's kind of a mix of those champagne particles, but also kind of those blue pinky particles here and there as well. This color is Chow, described as a deep fuchsia, which I don't think it's that deep or that fuchsia at all. I think if anything, it's more of a burnt maroon, I guess. This shade is really, really flattering, and it's pretty neutral toned. I think that the base pigment doesn't seem like anything extraordinary, so I didn't think that this was going to be my favorite shade, but the light glimmer particles are really, really bright. They're kind of pinky white gold, and they really catch the light where it hits. So I feel like as you move your eye around, it adds a lot of depth and dimension, all packed into one shade. Really, really love this one. And the last shade in this quad is Rosy, described as a petal pink, which I, again, don't really see at all. On me, it is definitely more of a coppery color. This is also the warmest color out of all of them, so I think it's really, really nice how there's a more very cool color and a very warm color, and you can kind of make a lot of different effects having both of these in the same palette. The base pigment is kind of an orangey copper, like I said, and the glimmer on top is really, really warm and golden yellow champagne-y flecks mostly. This is one of the smoother shades, not as textured as the last two. I also think that these look really, really good together. What I'll often do is I will maybe take like one of these shades, and if I want more depth, I might put this one in the corner. If I want more brightness, I might put this in my inner corner. If I want more warmth, I can just take some of this and pop it wherever I want, really. I think that these melt together in an almost watercolor effect, and I really, really like how that all plays together. And one thing I was kind of testing out is how these work with a brush versus your finger, and I find that with your finger you can really move, like work the shadow into your skin, but the result is that the glitter kind of comes out more. Whereas if I was using a brush, I felt like I could see more of whatever the base pigment was, and the brush kind of like sucked a bit of the glitter out instead, if that makes any sense. So that's kind of an interesting thing to keep in mind. They will look a little different depending on how you apply them, which is a good transition into how you apply these shadows. And not gonna lie, they are, they're easy to work with so long as you know what you're getting yourself into. You're not gonna get a perfected look. It's gonna be kind of all over, but it is gonna look like pretty nice in the end. What I usually will do is I will pack it onto one finger, but then use like one blending finger that's also kind of clean on the side. And I find that patting does not really do that well. You really kind of have to rub it in. Now it's a lot more alive, if you will. And then I will kind of work around the edges and then finally blend out with my finger. But as you can see, that's a lot of rubbing back and forth, and you do kind of have to press in. I feel like the more you really press down and work it in, the more the shadow kind of like melts into your skin and becomes one and turns into this really pretty glamorous thing. But if you are someone with like really, really sensitive eyelids, that might not work for you. It might be like too much rubbing, and you could go in with a brush, but you do kind of have to like press down with the brush too, and you'd really have to work your brush like into the shadows, which if you have expensive brushes, maybe that's not something you want to do. However, if you are someone that's like, yeah, I like the idea of just kind of like swiping it all over and like finger painting, this is really fun. This is awesome, and I really like the effect that it achieves. So keep in mind if you think that's what you're into. Another important point is that these eyeshadows crease. I have a clip here of how it looked at the end of the day. I've probably been wearing this for like at least 5 hours before I checked, and as you can see, it's super creased, but I kind of don't mind how it looks because it was kind of just like this messy-ish, super shiny one and done shadow. Like, because the shininess is so blingy, from afar you almost can't even tell that it's creasing. Well, it's pretty obvious that it's creasing, but it's like not as offensive as if it was just like a matte shadow, you know? There's all this glitter in the way to look at instead, and it's really, really easy to just blend back out. Obviously, it wouldn't be so easy to blend out if you had like a really intricate eye look or really intricate eyeliner or something, but I don't really feel that these eyeshadows lend themselves well to creating that kind of look in the first place. So long as you have kind of this like messy, shimmery eyelid, it's really easy to just like pop them back in their place if they're getting unruly. So I don't really mind that it creases too much. I almost like the messy effect that it gives. Again, this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but for me, it's really different from things I've tried, and it's like something new and exciting. I'm really thrilled by this formula in particular. One thing I want to get into is that when I got it, I was like, Serena, did you like hype yourself up too much? These are just eyeshadow toppers and you have so many eyeshadow toppers already to like love. But the more I worked with it, the more I was convinced that I do think this texture is unique and worth it. However, if you're someone who thinks, oh, maybe those things don't really jive with me, I did dig into my collection and think about other like formulas and shades of eyeshadow toppers I have already. So I do want to get into these as well. So in the middle, I have Swatch Situation from the Roen Beauty palette. Below that, I have the Colourpop Super Shock in Frog. Then I have How Many Carats from the Fenty Beauty Diamond Highlighters. This shade is Inner Corner Highlight from the Natasha Denona Glam palette. Above that is Rose Quartz from the Mcgrath Ritualistic Rose Quad. And finally, this is the lightest shade from the Kaja Beauty Bento Trio in Orange Blossom. All of these shades are extremely low in base pigment and are mostly just jam-packed with glimmer that ends up giving them the color that you see here. On top, I have the shade Hashtag from Roen Beauty Swatched, whereas below, I'm swatching the shade Outer Eyelid, again from the Natasha Denona Glam palette. I think Natasha Denona has a large variation in her formula of shades, so I swatched a normal shimmer shadow, again called Outer Eyelid, in a similar tone, but as you can see, the one on the bottom has the most of that shimmery topper effect. I didn't have any shadows in my collection that actually duped the shade Chow, so I went in with this shade Muse from an Anastasia palette, which I think really matches the base pigment. And then I wanted to take this opportunity to show that you can kind of create a similar effect that this palette gives by using any topper shadow, such as one of the first ones I showed as dupes for Situation. So I popped Frog over Muse, and I think they create very, very similar effects. Finally, we have Rosy swatched in the middle, and below that, the center shade from the Kaja Beauty Orange Blossom palette. And on top, the Super Shock shadow in Amaze. These colors are all very coppery with maybe a hint of pink on the bottom two shades, packed with a lot of glitter again. I love my 1111 palette. I eventually ended up settling on this because I felt like this had the best arrangement of shades that would be flattering on me while also like great everyday one and done shades, and also had like a distinct enough selection within itself. I was really drawn to the cool one, but I didn't feel like it would always be the most flattering. So having this one cooler shade in here satisfied my craving for the cool palette, and having this one warmer shade in this palette satisfied my craving for the warm palette, and this was just like a great in between. I think these shades are all pretty unique from each other and give different overall effects if you use them as just a one eyeshadow, and you can pair them with other eyeshadows and looks however you want. For example, today I have this taupey one as kind of a base shadow, and then I actually have like a normal pressed powder coppery shadow that I took on a fluffy brush and kind of blended it over, and they worked really nicely together. Again, not like a super perfected look, but pretty glamorous and easy to do nevertheless. I also wanted to mention that my favorite shade is this one, which I was really surprised about. I thought this would be like a boring shade because I don't really go for these kinds of shades in my eyeshadow collection right now. I always find these kind of like burgundy shadows, I find them to just kind of look really brown and muddy on my eyes often, but this one is really pretty, and I just love how you can build it up thicker in some parts to have it really pigmented, and then also like sheared out in other areas so that the glitter comes through more and it gives a really multi-dimensional effect to the eye. I think this like shadow formula brought out a lot more dimension in this color than a normal pressed powder shadow would for me. So I've been using this one a lot in particular. Those are my thoughts on this palette. I am probably going to use this a lot, honestly. So if you have any questions, let me know. I hope this was helpful, and I really like this palette, so I'm excited to try more from this brand. So maybe stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching.